The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
A new beginning, another opportunity to make a statement. Lionheart celebrates its roots with the car that started it all. 18 races to determine who is the best in the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-per-hour Indy cars inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one Lionheart Speedway Series champion whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. The Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing starts now.
The last time out, it was a blender of various strategies at the Magic Mile. It was Matt Taylor who conquered the blender of strategies, to come away with his 4th checker flag of the season. One of the talks of that race was Matt Wagner's drive for the pack after his issues after qualifying to be able to make things tight entering today. And what a track we head to. Today we're in the Windy City, as this is Chicagoland Speedway, and this is the HyperX Chicagoland 200. Hello everyone, and welcome to Race 12 of Season 2 for the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing, live on RaceSpotTV and ESTV. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary Ultra Comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. My name's Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Andrew Kinsella for today's coverage with Arjuna Kankipani in the producer's seat. Let's dive straight into our graphics esports countdown to green as we get ready to go racing from Joliet, Illinois tonight, Andrew. These drivers getting ready for their 12th race of the campaign after what was an attrition-filled one at New Hampshire.
Absolutely. This is going to be a big reset race for a number of drivers. As you say, New Hampshire attrition-filled. We have a very tight championship battle that is brewing as we enter this second half of the season. Of course, we have Chicagoland today, but also in 1 week's time, Motegi looking forward in that schedule. Then Iowa and Charlotte in September. So we've got a number of very tricky tracks coming up, and it's going to be very important that the drivers get this next sequence off on the right foot here tonight at Chicagoland.
Your schedule brought to you by Next Level Racing. Let's talk about that championship battle that's coming into play, because 35 points, make it 38 specifically, is the difference between the Matts. Matt Taylor with 4 victories, more top 5s and top 10s for Matt Wagner, but don't forget about Joe Branch, Andrew Wood, all within range, within about 100 points of your championship lead entering Chicagoland.
Absolutely. Your top 4 definitely still well within striking distance. As we know, this is the Speedway Series, and anything can happen on these big high-banked ovals like tonight. Andrew Wood, your points, rookie points leader so far, is doing a great job in that 4th position. Joe Branch had a little bit of some issues at New Hampshire last time out, and he's hoping for a rebound race as well.
How are things looking for the team side of things? It's a little bit different compared to some of your top running teams so far. On the driver's side, the HyperX team standings see currently coming into tonight. Team Race First Sunset at the top of the standings over Power Slide Motorsports, Dark Horse Racing, Synergy Motorsports Black, and Synergy Motorsports, your top 5. A lot of shuffling has happened throughout these point standings. Power Slide starting to close up that gap in rapidly.
Yeah, you haven't really seen sort of one team dominating yet so far this season, Justin. It's been a case of one race it'll be one team, another race it'll be another team, but more often than not, you're having multiple teams with drivers who are having issues. So you haven't really seen that one team come out and sweep that top 3 or put themselves well within that top 5. So I think what we're looking for in the second half of the season from a lot of these teams is a little bit more consistency from their drivers and trying to avoid those mistakes and avoid the bad luck. And I think that's what it's going to take for some of these teams to claw back themselves into this team standings and overhaul Race First Sunset up at the top there.
You talked about the rookie standings a little bit moments ago when it came to our driver's side of things. We'll take a look at the rookie standings in depth, brought to you by Butt Kicker. Shane Coogan, the second best rookie in the standings, and Samuel Ryman, who at one point was top 10 overall in the standings, third in the rookie standings. Dakota DeMaine, Jim Herrick, the top 5. A lot of your other rookies, they are looking for consistency, just like you mentioned on the team side entering tonight, especially that bottom half of the top 10.
I was going to say no driver probably is looking for consistency more than Jacob Oster at this point. He has not had the season he was looking for, very much up and down, feast or famine, and a number of other drivers down there as well. James Watson, another, and Gavin Sanders, he's had no luck at all this season, but he's definitely shown the speed at some point. It's just a matter of some of these drivers putting it all together and stringing together a few races in a row, and they can get back into this fight here.
As these drivers get ready for tonight's action, let's take a look at your series details presented by GSI as we're driving with the Dallara DW12s tonight in custom fixed setups built by Andrew Kinsella himself. $6,930 in cash and prizes available throughout the campaign. Defending series champion Alexis Newsom having a solid IndyCar campaign, factory back 9th in the standings, the defending team champions entering tonight. Of course, that Triple Crown that rounds out that trio of races, Auto Club to close out the campaign. But Chicagoland is always known for close races when it comes to IndyCar. But Lionheart, the best to put it beyond doubt in the past, Andrew, because the largest margin of victory, 19.7 seconds. Robert Malechka III, one of the dominant drivers along with Alexander Van de Sant last year. This is also, keep in mind, a track where fuel saving could become a major gamble, but also critical tonight.
Absolutely. I was going to say fuel mileage will definitely play a part in things here tonight. You've seen it a number of times at these 1.5 mile ovals already this season, and tonight is no different. In fact, I'd say tonight is one of those times where fuel strategy is going to be key, and you need to find that balance between speed and being responsible with that right foot, and it's such a tricky thing to do. Robert Malechka did it a treat last year. Will any of the drivers be able to step up this year?
That's going to be the major question mark, as these drivers will be racing in the sunshine to start off today in some time just past 3 p.m. Track conditions see 106 degrees Fahrenheit right now, 73 degrees Fahrenheit in final practice with partly cloudy skies. Winds currently gusting towards turn 4's banking at 5 miles per hour for today's action. And as final practice progresses here, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez at the top of Ford. Tyler Graf is second in the session with a 25.7. That is about a tenth back of Nunez. Then it's Sanders, Forsythe. Matt Wagner just jumped into the top 5 as well. What will these drivers be expecting here today, Andrew, based on what they might expect from the cars?
I think this shot right here sums it up. You're going to see a lot of two-wide action, a lot of side-by-side battling, and it's going to be all about give and take with these drivers here today. You're going to have to be very respectful of your opponents. You're going to have to be very mindful to not drift up on corner exit, because that is a very treacherous area, particularly off of turns 2 and turns 4. And these drivers are going to have to really respect one another and give each other the space, particularly early on, because in order to finish first you must finish, and this is one of the tracks where it can be often very difficult to finish.
This is also going to be a race where plenty of your competitors will be starting towards the back tonight. James Watson, Gary Godso, Shane Coogan, Rodrigo Munoz, George Nzotto, Gabe Wood, AJ Musselman all have EOLs entering tonight's event, all stemming in part from those actions in events, in several big ones seen at New Hampshire. So in our words, track position for some going to be not there from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of those places where you just have to be patient. If you're one of those starting towards the back, you have to find your way to surgically get yourself through the field. You can't use your car as a blunt instrument here. There's simply no room on these high banks of Chicagoland for that to happen. It's deceptively tight here is the best way that I can describe it. You think you have more room than you do here, and it often draws drivers in to make moves that they wouldn't necessarily probably have made if they were looking at it in hindsight.
Of note, you have to be able to attend to serve the EOL. 2 drivers of note indicated they will be serving those at Twin Green will take in the next round. That will be Godso and Nzotto specifically. The largest margin back from the field the winner has had in the past in series history. The story of the Lionheart IndyCar Series days for the DW12. 24th position, Robert Bluen back in Season 3. Every other driver has had to start inside the top 5 to be able to come away with a victory here. 40 seconds away from qualifying here. Your thoughts on how this could fare out this evening with these track conditions being fairly hot here for tonight?
Yeah, it's going to be really tricky here. Qualifying is going to be so important. As you mentioned, most of the winners here have come from inside that top 5, top 10 area. And the reason for that is that running that low line as the leader, it's really powerful. It's really hard to get a good run and get around them. So qualifying, very important. Clean air and track position also important. So that also in turn means that fuel strategy and timing your pit stops will be incredibly important as well.
Will be able to drive their way to HyperX Victory Lane tonight. Find out in just a little bit as these drivers have finished up their final practice session to prepare for tonight. Top time, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, 25.627. How will qualifying fare out? We're about to find out. The qualifying record set last season by Nick DeGroot was a 25.680. What will the benchmark be this season? Let's find out. Drivers now making their way to the racetrack now for 5 minutes of solo qualifying, 2 laps up on the board. And right now, these drivers, it's going to be the matter of who will be able to get the job done. There have been essentially 3 pole sitters throughout the season. Michael Goodman, Matt Taylor, Matt Wagner. Those are your 3 pole sitters throughout the season out of the previous 11 races.
Yeah, it's been domination in qualifying from Matt, and Mike. And you can see already on screen that Matt Taylor is one of the first drivers out here taking this will be the first lap of qualifying after his warm-up lap, and you can see at least for the first lap he's staying fairly high here, and this is just to get the car nice and wound up, get as much of a run as possible. Your second lap is definitely going to be the fast one here. You can see him staying up nice and high through this turn 3, turn 4 area, and then you have this long dogleg section here at Chicagoland. He's going to go down to the apron and then getting back up on track. So important to not have any speed scrub there. He's going to stay very, very tight to this inside line through 1 and 2. And then you can see the unique part of Chicagoland here. It's a curved back straightaway here, Justin, where you never really stop turning. You let the car go out just a little bit, and then he's right back on the apron through 3, through 4, and then he's going to go all the way down to the grass here, coming across the line. And it is a really nice lap there, 25.740 from Matt Taylor.
Matt Taylor starting off with a blistering time. 2 1,000ths back, Tony Shaw, and Dean Mull jumps them both. Dean Mull by 3 1,000ths of a second. Samuel Ryman up inside the top 4, also in the 25.7 bracket. Scott Rankin led the field out for the final restart and start practices. Scott Rankin looking for a good qualifying position here. 26.1 to start things off. 25.7 as well. 25.7 seem to be the benchmark so far in the early going, with plenty of heavy hitters yet to come out.
Mike Rigney now to the top of the timing stance with a 7.33. So you can see just how close the margins are here. Your top 6 positions right now, just 14 thousandths of a second separate first from fourth, and we still have more than half the field to go here.
Trevor Malone jumping to the top of the board, nearly setting the record for qualifying at 25.705.
Wow,
Trevor
what a lap
Malone,
for Malone there.
One of the quickest drivers in practice for a reason. Malone with a lot of confidence entering tonight as we take a look at Oster. And now Joe Branch.
And Joe Branch, one of the drivers who doesn't necessarily shine in qualifying, but he always seems to be thereabouts in the race. But this time at 7.29, he's in third place. Make that or second, make it third as Oster goes second.
One of the best qualifying runs for the 9 machine all season, in fact, right there. Luis Gonzalez Nunez really set the tempo and expectations a bit high with the practice session speed. See how qualifying paces, though. Nunez a little bit higher up out of turn 4. Luis Gonzalez Nunez into the 6s. To the top of the board goes Nunez.
Wow, what a lap there from Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Matt Wagner also up in that top 3 with just a little bit slower there. Craig Forsyth, another driver who really needs a good qualifying run, but here's the driver we've all been looking for, your current record holder in Nick DeGroot.
Can Nick DeGroot bump up his time from last season's qualifying records? 25.69 is the benchmark. Can't get there, but does get up to second. Nick DeGroot, once again, starting towards the front of Chicagoland. Now, one driver we talked about a lot last time was the 88. This is Tyler Graff. He also jumps up to the 3rd position by 1,000th of a second over Malone and Wagner.
Times are really falling here. Gavin Sanders, another driver who's very fast in practice. What can he do in this qualifying session? We only have 30 seconds left to go and just a few more drivers left to go. Gavin Sanders being one of them, working through 3, working through 4. It's a little bit higher than these other drivers. Will he have the momentum across the line? I believe that was a 7.44 there from Sanders, so that's only 15th for him.
And look at the top of the board. A new fast time. Andrew Wood, in the final moments of the session, jumps to the top of the board with a 25.695. And that is a first-time pole sitter for 2022. For the first time all season, someone not named Matt or Michael will lead them to the green here tonight.
What a lap from your Rookie of the Year points leader in Andrew Wood. He's, of course, fourth place in the regular standings, but just a tremendous lap from Wood.
Let's take a look at your starting lineup for tonight's action. Andrew Wood setting the pole time by 3/1000ths of a second over Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Nick DeGroot, last year's pole sitter, starts in third with Tyler Graff in the fourth position, coming off a top 3 in his series debut. Then it's Trevor Malone and Matt Wagner inside the top 6, followed by Craig Forsyth and Jacob Oster. Brian Beard and Joe Branch round out your top 10. Separation from the top of the board, 3/100ths of a second. Mike Rigney and Dean Mull, the top 12. And it's Matt Taylor and Tony Showen inside the top 14. Scott Rankin in 15th. And it's Gavin Sanders in 16th. Jim Herrick and Ron Hacker, the top 18, half a tenth back. 30th Maid and Will Gibson, 19th and 20th. Jeff Sheehan and Samuel Ryman, 21st and 22nd, with Vern Hawkins the third, and Creighton Carter towards the bottom of the board. Last qualifiers up on the board were Mike Gibson and Hugo Galez. The rest of the field are part of the EOL club. AJ Musselman, Gabe Wood, James Watson, Gonzalo Munoz, Isaiah Dupree also in that back grouping, with Shane Coogan and Matthew Short also not setting qualifying times. Again, most of those drivers with EOLs tonight. Let's take a look at your featured onboard cameras for tonight, starting off with Matthew Short with the Butt Kicker on board. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. James Watson, a part of the EOL club, will have the Moser Racing onboard camera, redefining sim racing. Go further, go faster with Moser Racing. Visit moserracing.com. Tyler Graff, coming off a successful run in New Hampshire, has the Graphics Esports onboard camera tonight. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. Those are look at your featured onboard cameras tonight. We have onboard cameras throughout the entire field as well for tonight's action. 133 laps, 134 should say, for tonight's action. 200 miles up on the board here tonight at Chicagoland Speedway. Your keys to victory tonight, Andrew, if you want to win here in the Windy City.
I think the number one thing here is give and take, Justin. I think that you really need to have a lot of respect for the drivers around you. And then obviously that fuel economy is going to be so important. We've seen it a number of times across this year and a number of times at Chicagoland. It can very easily turn into a fuel mileage race, and you have to be on top of your numbers from the very beginning of this race. And then finally, just finding a way to knife your way through the field, particularly if you're some of these drivers that start further back in the field. You have to be patient, you have to be surgical, and you just have to find a way to make these passes stick.
Tonight's fuel windows for reference, 38 to 40 laps the estimation today. That still comes in with about 15 laps to go. These drivers have a lot to consider for tonight. But tonight, it's just about time to go racing. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the HyperX Chicagoland 200. Andrew Wood in control of the field. Green flag is out. We're underway from Chicagoland. Coming to the end of the first lap, Andrew Wood holds on to the lead, but up to second already goes Tyler Graff. Up a couple spots, Trevor Malone amongst those trying to prevent being shuffled, using the second and third lines in the battle with Luis Gonzalez Nunez for fourth.
Yeah, Luis Gonzalez Nunez got swallowed up just a little bit on that first lap there. But you can see already Tyler Graff moving to the front of this race. He wasn't content with just sitting in second. He wanted to lead, and leading he is.
To the point goes the 88 machine. Lots of speed for Tyler Graff from New Hampshire. And remember, it was talked about a little bit where he wasn't expecting last week to be up at the start, up at the front. He's done it again this week with the good starting position, and now is the Pied Piper with DeGroot leading the outside line for second.
You could say that number change that Tyler Graff did before the last race is really, the luck has continued on into this race. But look at that hornet's nest of cars that we have coming off of turn 3 here. 3 wide there. It looks like Matt Wagner and Trevor Malone in the middle there.
Communication wanting a little bit of space there. Malone in the midst of 3 wide in the battle for a third of the time. Jacob Oster makes it a 2-3 for factory back. Should say 3-4. For the back end of some of these machines now in the midst of this draft, you can see just the difference marks of trying to find that clean air pocket currently. This is a track where multiple groups, as you talked about, can come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much as these cars are drafting in a pack right now, clean air will become increasingly important as the stint goes on. The tires are going to wear out just like we see all the time in this car. And it's going to be increasingly important just to find that clean air on those front wings. But right now, that's going to be very difficult to do if you're battling back in this pack like this battle for 25th. This is some of the drivers that were in that EOL club that we talked about already starting to move up through this field.
7 spots for Matthew Short, Shane Coogan up 5 spots. James Watson's gained a spot so far compared to the original starting slots. In the midst of that hornet's nest, some of those drivers still 2x2 and in some cases 3 wide. Up at the point, Jacob Oster drives around Grant on the outside and makes it look easy for the point.
Yeah, really strong stuff from Oster there. He obviously, if you were tuned into RaceSpot just a little bit earlier this evening, had a really strong race in the Indy Open Series not more than an hour ago, and unfortunately was taken out in the last 3 laps, but it looks like he has taken the torch right from where he left off in that race, and he is leading this race really strong. 7 positions already from Jacob Oster.
Jacob Oster dropping ahead of the field, or should say pulling away from it. Who is dropping? Andrew Wood is. See him there. You see Wood on the bottom is committed to wrapping the bottom of the racetrack here. Compared to some of these other drivers, he's already dropped into a battle for the 5th position. Nunez on the outside looking to rip that away.
And the danger of wrapping the bottom like that, Justin, is that sometimes you get your momentum checked up on corner exit like we see there, particularly when you have a car that's exiting above you like we just saw. You just can't drift up as much. You can't keep your foot in it quite as much, and you just don't have the run. And it seems like Andrew Wood, as religiously as he's been using that bottom lane, it's just not working for him this early on in the race.
Most of the field has committed in when you're side by side to that second groove to be able to get that momentum you're referring to. It is 1-2 for factory back now, keep in mind. This is something different than what we've seen throughout the campaign. The teammates trying to control the pack. And this was talked about during the season earlier. The experienced group brought in from last season being very vital. Now they lead the pack as Nunez, of note, has shuffled back behind Wood.
Yeah, in fact, I would say this is almost reminiscent of last season where it was Malechka and De Groot who were controlling the race from the front. Now it's Oster taking up the mantle. I think this is more what De Groot had in mind when he got Oster in to replace the departing Malechka and Newsom. So this is the type of thing that we were expecting from our team championship, our rating team champions from last year, and we just haven't seen it this year. It's good to finally see it, albeit more than halfway through the season at this point.
Starting to already reach that point of difficulty to pass in some of the cases. We're seeing some of the single file form out. Greg Forsyth is ahead of the current first battle on racetrack. Joe Branch trying to use the bottom to get around Brian Beer. Up on the top side, it's Dean Mall, who was amongst one of your quickest earlier qualifiers in the session. Tony Showen up 2 positions in 12th.
Yeah, the 2 Powerslide Motorsports drivers, 10th and 12th, or 11th and 12th right now, with Branch and Showen. So that's another set of teammates trying to hook up here and maybe make some things happen. But yeah, you can definitely see the high side right now. It really seems like where you want to be, but the low side is just so tempting, Justin, because if you can get the clean air, the low side will work and work a treat. But the problem is it's very hard to tell. Oh, as Taylor gets very close to the wall there, he might have even brushed the wall coming out of 2 there.
Is he going to be okay is the major thing. Tony Showen all the way to the top, bumps himself in 3 and 4, nearly up to the wall. And can say Matt Taylor did scrub a little bit of the wall with the right side tires. Taylor is currently holding on to the 13th position where he started. Trouble towards the back. That is Samuel Ryman, who has lost the draft just now.
Yeah, Ryman had a big moment coming out of turn 4 there, lost the rear of the car and went down through the grass on the infield there. But I was going to say for Matt Taylor, this is really important because right now he's behind all 3 of his championship rivals here. You can see Ryman just comes up, he tags the back of the 3rd factory back driver, that's AJ Musselman. No fault of Musselman there. Musselman was definitely holding his lane nicely there. I think Ryman just thought he had a little bit more room up top than he did, and he slid up into Musselman, bounced off him through the grass. No harm, no foul, and both drivers keep going, but that's lost Ryman a lot of time there.
Ryman has now lost more than a second to Gonzalo Munoz at the very tail end of the field. Take a look at Taylor. And Taylor, we know, is someone who can usually find spaces to work in the midst of dirty air and the aero wash. See him trying these different lines. Here's the contact with the wall, though, right there.
Yeah, it was very, very light contact, and I think Taylor's gotten away with it. The car definitely seems like it's still working for him. He's gotten around both Joe Branch and Tony Schowen now, so it looks like he's still moving through the field okay at this point. And I was going to say, Taylor, it's very important that he does that because 2 of his main championship rivals are in front of him, and 1 is right behind him.
Gonzalo Munoz, of note, has just had to pit from the 30th position. He had contact with the Zero Machine and Mike Gibson off of turn 4 a lap ago. Significant side pod damage to Munoz as a result. Take a look at the battle with Mike Rigney for 15th position. That's Sanders to the inside. Next on behind is Jim Herrick, trying to utilize the outside line to pull away from some more of that side-by-side fighting around him.
And Sanders is one of those drivers that I was talking about that definitely needs a strong run here today, but not just a strong run, a strong finish, because so often we've seen Sanders have strong runs and get through the field and then get caught up in an incident, and we can't afford to have too many more of those this season. Meanwhile, we got battling up here, Andrew Wood and Trevor Malone have been going at it, and Luis Gonzalez-Nunez now looking to the inside of Malone.
Wood's starting to make up some of the lost ground, in fact. He's starting to utilize more of that bottom to regain the time. Malone on the outside holds off Nunez. So now Wood, after dropping outside the top 5, is one of the quickest cars on the racetrack. He ran a 10th of a second quicker than the race leaders.
And this is what Wood is really good at. He's good at saving his tires, saving his equipment, and then as the run goes on, Wood just gets faster and faster in comparison to the drivers around him. So doesn't surprise me to see Wood recovering here. It looked like he was just being very patient early on, and now it's coming back all around to Andrew Wood.
So nowhere to go, you see, though, for Nunez trying to find a way to poke around Trevor Malone, using a bit of that bottom line. And they are losing ground to the rest of the top 4 here in the midst of this fighting.
Yeah, and Luis Gonzalez-Nunez is really trying to get around Malone here. He's been going at him for a couple of laps, and he just hasn't been able to make that work. And meanwhile, Matt Wagner is right behind these 2, and he's praying that they don't come to blows here because it's going to be very hard for Matt Wagner to avoid anything that happens here.
Look at the Dark Horse Racing Machine utilizing the outside groove. Now into the middle line, trying to fall through to where the clean air is. Nunez slides up, takes that clean air away from the front wing. Wagner just nowhere to go quite yet with this run. If anything, look a bit boxed in.
And that is so easy to happen here at Chicagoland. Again, it's a deceptively narrow track where you think you have more room than you do, but it's really only about 3 useful lanes wide here. And as you can see by the track map in the bottom, you just never stop really turning at any point in time here. So it's a unique sort of layout on the iRacing service and in North American oval racing in general.
Only bubble that's in the pit lane for reference is Munoz with the damage we mentioned earlier. Most of the field has stayed within the draft, 7 seconds back for the top 28. Then 29th, 30th, 31st, and 32nd have lost the main draft. AJ Musselman, Mike Gibson, Samuel Ryman, James Watson, those 4 drivers, very tail end of those respective bubbles. About 14 or so laps away from the estimated pit window, by the way. That battle for 5th continuing on. outside Malone, inside Nunez. Still nowhere to go for Nunez as he still tries to just avoid the bumps. Has to check up a bit, in fact, for the entry Nunez does.
It's getting dicey here, and you can tell Nunez really wants to get around Malone, but Malone just not having any of it. Meanwhile, look at that blue and teal car coming in the background there. That is Matt Taylor on the inside of Craig Forsyth right behind this battle here. So it looks like Matt Wagner now looking to the inside of Nunez, and Wood on the inside of Tyler Graff there. And Wood is the only driver of those that I just mentioned to actually complete the pass there.
And that driver consistently staying towards the bottom now, using the top line. Needs to close up 4/10 to get up to Nick DeGroot. Jacob Oster. Battle still continuing on for Taylor and company. Wagner still trying to find a way to poke around both Nunez and Malone now. It's around Nunez. Now, will he be the one who gets around the 69 before the rest of the leaders pull away by more than a second?
Yeah, the tricky thing for Wagner here is that there's quickly losing the draft in front of him. So suddenly Malone, while he doesn't have the draft on the straightaways as much, he also doesn't have any aero wash in the corners either. And Wagner just isn't able to keep that car pinned on the apron. And Luis Gonzalez Nunez now cycles back in front. But I think Luis Gonzalez Nunez finally clears Malone, but Malone fighting back on the outside.
Slide job coming into play for Nunez. Malone not making it easy, though, for Nunez to fully close. And the slider goes for naught. Nunez loses the top line out of turn 2. Malone, again, not backing down for 5th. They have lost within about a second and a half, just about, to Tyler Graff as a result of this battling.
Yeah, now a top 4 breakaway, and the more that these two go at each other, the slower that they're going around this track, and the further out those top 4 are going to drag themselves. And this is exactly what they were hoping for, is a breakaway like this. If we stay green here, it's going to be very tricky for these drivers to bridge that gap at this point.
Munsto's bottled up behind them now. Beard and Rankin also keeping close. This battle stretching, realistically speaking, all the way back to about 11th and 12th position. Caution flag is out. It's 16th spot Gavin Sanders who goes around. We're under yellow for the first time tonight.
And just as I was saying earlier that Sanders really needed that consistent run and a nice solid finish, he makes a mistake, and it looks like it was a little bit of contact just coming into turn 1, a little miscommunication. I think that was Mike Rigney on the bottom there.
Ron Hacker behind. Watch the end plate coming off towards the straightaway.
So Sanders had to lift for Mike Rigney there, and Ron Hacker had nowhere to go. So that was just a little bit of an innocent mistake, a little miscommunication that can so easily happen. You saw Rigney juke to the right just a little bit. Sanders reacted, and then Hacker just wasn't able to react in time there.
There goes the first pit stop window right now, potentially for drivers. It is outside the original estimated windows if it was to go green, but it's still a vital time for these stops, coming to what will be 100 to go when we get back underway. Still a 2-stopper on the gas, estimated to make it to the checkered flag now.
Yeah, and I suspect everyone will be coming down pit lane. That was a big long green flag run there for these drivers, and 33 laps. It's not in another window to make it, but at the same time, you definitely can't. You definitely need to come down pit lane because you're just so close. We do have one driver staying out. Who is that? Is that Jim Herrick?
Yes, Jim Herrick.
So I think Herrick will probably just be trying to get a lap lead here, and I suspect that he will come down before the 1 to go here.
Keep an eye on that as the race off the pit lane. No change between Oster and DeGroot. Graff, Malone, Nunez, Wagner, Wood, the rest of the top grouping off the line. No wing changes throughout the field as well. All 8 to 9 second pit stops. During this sequence, you see your biggest movers. Oster, amongst those who is really impressing. It's been a nightmarish season for the rookie in Speedway. But for Jacob, this has been his best performance of the campaign tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Oster hasn't been happy with how his season has gone for sure, and he, I think, used the last couple of weeks to really recharge and refocus and realize that he needs to invest a little bit more time into the Lionheart series, and I think he's done that in preparation for today, and it's showing in the results. Meanwhile, Andrew Wood was the big loser off of pit lane there, Justin. He's now back behind Matt Wagner, so where he was in the top 4 now, I think he lost 3 positions on that pit cycle.
Wood, who came in 3rd in the lane. The reason for that, he overran his pit stall, and that lost him 2 seconds. Pit lane. Most drivers average 30 to 31 seconds in their boxes. So as they get ready to go here for one to go next time around expected, Jim Herrick, still yet to come in for service, did get the lead lap. Remember, he had started in 17th position. This looks to be about 98 laps to decide it. From this point forward, last year, remember, just the one caution in this event to start off Speedway Series' events at Chicagoland. It was Robert Malechka III who picked up the victory last year by 3.4 seconds.
And the nice thing about this timing of the caution, we mentioned it a little bit, it doesn't really put us into a fuel save window, so these drivers are still going to be going full out here, I think, when this goes back to green flag running. And I think now that the drivers have seen just how hard it is to pass as the run goes on, a lot of them will be maybe a little bit more desperate to gain positions on this restart here.
That was Jim Herrick as expected. In the lead lap, Jacob Oster now ready to start things off at the head of the field, followed by DeGroot, Graf, Malone, Nunez, Wagner, Wood, Forsyth, Schowen, and Taylor, your top 10. I think you have to keep an eye on Taylor, indeed, on this restart, possibly. He was moving and moving fast before hitting that bottleneck in that battle for 50 for the caution flag.
Yeah, so I definitely think that Taylor's one you need to watch out for. Tony Schowen has been battling with him for most of that first stint as well. He's the driver on the move. And meanwhile, a little bit further back, Vern Hawkins III is up 6 positions as well. So a number of different movers further back in the pack to keep an eye on this stint.
Biggest movers in the race, 10 positions, Shane Coogan, Matthew Short. They're 22nd and 23rd respectively, however. So lots of time to make up. They are already 11 seconds back in this line. But factory backed, they've been having a up and down campaign after their changes to the roster for this season. Defending team champions having their best run as a unit tonight. Jacob Oster, Nick DeGroot in control of the field. Green flag is out, back underway.
A little bit of a checkup there in positions 4, 5, and 6, and that's caused a little bit of congestion here. We're going 3 wide into turn 1 for 6th.
Andrew Wood losing tons of ground, in fact, with that. To the inside of him goes Scott Rankin. 3 by 3 for a moment. Rankin takes it to the inside, near 4 wide, contact, Wagner up into the wall. Wagner with side pod damage. Wagner loses ground as a result, one of your championship contenders.
Yeah, that was Tony Schowen to the inside of Matt Wagner, and then Rankin went to the inside of Schowen after Schowen was already on the low side there. So I think Schowen got spooked, got up into Wagner, who didn't quite realize just how far. He probably didn't get a 3 wide call from the inside there. Didn't realize he had become the outside car rather than the middle car.
There is now a bit of a wrinkle in the right side pod for Wagner. He has lost the main draft. The top 10 are broken away from that. Wood to the outside of Scott Rankin. Scott Rankin, 6th position. Look at this replay. Offset 4 wide for a moment. There's the contact that's put the number 3 in the wall.
Yeah, and the problem was they came off the corner 3 wide, and Forsyth was to the outside of Wagner. Forsyth dropped behind, but Rankin replaced him on the inside, and I don't think that Wagner realized that the cycle had changed that drastically, and he was suddenly on the outside there.
As a result, these drivers 6th on back have lost more than a second. Race leader, speaking of them, Nick DeGroot to the point. Oster to 2nd. Malone, Nunez, and Graf have also been a part of this breakaway pack. Back and forth between factory backed up at the head of the pack.
We saw Nunez and Malone going at each other for more than 15 laps on that first stint, and they've resumed the pleasantries, but they are now right firmly in that leading pack with the 2 factory back drivers as well as Tyler Graff, and this was probably the dream restart for all 5 of these drivers, having this type of separation already over Scott Rankin.
Rankin nearly 2 seconds back of your race leader as a result of all the shuffling. Nunez in his battle with 3rd position with Malone. Side by side for the lead again. Oster to the point once again. They lose a bit of ground for a moment, then gain it back up on the straightaways for reference in the midst of the swap drafting by about a 10th of a second fluctuation.
And that's the beauty of having 2 teammates at the front of a pack like this, is that they're able to coordinate that swap draft. They're able to figure out when is the best time to swap and when is it most advantageous for the lap times. Meanwhile, Scott Rankin, he's been pretty much glued to that inside lane, and they aren't swapping at all in that second pack. And in fact, it's been more battling for the second slot between Forsyth and Wood.
So keep an eye on the race lead pack. Single filing out now with Malone holding on to the 3rd spot. You see in the background, though, Scott Rankin is being taken 2 and 3 wide. Some of the shuffling in the back grouping continuing on now as things start to heat up in that second pack. There it is there. Shawan now leads pack 2. Here comes Forsyth to try and go for the swap. Wood wanting some spots back, trying to battle it out with Matt Taylor closing in as well.
I think a couple of the more veteran drivers in that pack realized what Scott Rankin was doing, and they sort of coordinated themselves to displace him off of the lead of this pack. And now it's Tony Shawan and Craig Forsyth doing some swap drafting, and they quickly realized that they were losing ground to the leading pack, and they needed to start swapping if they had any shot of staying within that lead draft range.
Look at Rankin, one of his best races of the season so far. No build-up for a run behind Wood, as Wood has recovered back to the 8th position after being the pole sitter. Tony Shawan going for the swap on Forsyth. It's not working, though. Last time by a 25.8 for the race leaders. This time by similar times for the race lead pack. 26 flat for Forsyth to Tony Shawan's 25.8.
Yeah, they've got to find a little bit of a better rhythm here. I think they're just not really maximizing the speed through these corners, and it's just losing them time rather than gaining time. Meanwhile, Matt Wagner, despite that side pod damage, he is firmly at the front of this 3rd pack that's formed behind Taylor. They're about a second behind Matt Taylor in 10th place right now. But he is not letting many of these drivers have another opportunity at it, so he is trying to drive through any damage that he might have.
His pack right now, nearly a full second behind 10th. To the inside of Wagner, outside Vern Hawkins the 3rd. A buffer between themselves and Brian Beard as well as Dean Mull for reference. Wagner, you see that little bit of damage right there. That's where that is. That is not a flush seam from that contact with the wall.
Yeah, it's not a lot of damage, but it's just enough to hinder Matt Wagner in his pursuits. And I think as this run goes on, he's going to find it increasingly difficult to keep the tires underneath him, because it will disturb the downforce. It will disturb the air over the outside of the car. So it's definitely a difficult spot for Matt Wagner in a damage mitigation mode that he'll have to be in. But that driver right beside him, Vern Hawkins III, he is up 12 positions here, Justin. He's been having a really nice race here.
And solid so far, up on that outside groove. Just can't make it work, though, to be able to make passes. Speaking of passes, though, Tyler Graff is trying to make some. To the inside for 3rd position. Nunez, though, has the outside line. Graff nearly into the back end of the 14.
This is the point where discretion might be the better part of valor for Tyler Graff. As long as they're still within the nice drafting range of those top 2, I don't know that Tyler really needs to force this issue too much at this point in the run. Maybe allow Nunez to keep working his tires off it and regroup a little bit later on in this stint.
This could lose them some ground too. The top 2 who have elected to stay single file and stay tucked up behind of each other. These drivers have more than nearly 3 seconds between 5th and 6th position with how this is buffered up. As we continue on here, we quickly approach the halfway point of tonight's action here from iRacing's virtual Chicagoland Speedway. You're watching the HyperX Chicagoland 200 on RaceSpotTV and ESTV. It's Jacob Ulster and Nick DeGroot, your top two. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Tyler Graff, Trevor Malone from Chicagoland.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to tonight's coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series in the HyperX Chicagoland 200. Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella with you, where it's Jacob Ulster and Nick DeGroot in control of the pack so far tonight. 75 laps to go from the Windy City. Factory Backed is on the charge. They have broken the draft from the rest of your top five, especially with the battle for third starting to heat up between Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Tyler Graff. This race taking similar overtones to last year. One caution so far, and Factory Backed again is on the pace tonight.
And this is why the draft has been broken, as Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Tyler Graff spent basically that entire ad break fighting side by side, and they're still not done yet. And every lap that they do it, they've been costing themselves time to the two Factory Back drivers in the front, and they show no sign of letting up here. So this is just costing them time, and it's slowly starting to bring them back towards that second pack, where Andrew Wood and Tony Schowen are starting to drag that group back up to these two.
They have lost a tenth per lap with the result of their battling. Now with 73 laps to go, now within nearly a second is Andrew Wood of Trevor Malone as a result of those drivers all working together now. Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, Greg Forsythe, Scott Rankin, all in this drafting pack, stretching back to 10th. Taylor, in fact, skipping his way ahead of Tony Schowen. Not too much squabbling here. They have stagnated on their loss of time compared to your race leaders since they started working together compared to the battle for third.
Yeah, you call it stagnating, I call it cooperating here, and these drivers have realized that they're much faster when they actually get in line and work with each other rather than working against each other, because at this stage of the race it's far more important that they gather themselves up and find a way to start reeling in the leaders, because they're quickly getting to the point where even a bad pit stop will keep Oster and DeGroot way out front. Meanwhile, the battle between Graff and Gonzalez Nunez is still ongoing. Nunez has been hugging that outside line and just not letting Tyler Graff come up, and it's been costing them just so much time.
They're 1.6 seconds back of Jacob Ulster currently, with the battling Nunez way up the racetrack. Graff having a lift out of the gas at the bottom of the racetrack. Oh, just waiting behind, nearly a full second behind all this. It's worth noting that Andrew Wood is within 5 car lengths now with the 69 machine. So things are about to get pretty compact there. Compare that to what Matt Wagner's been able to do so far. Wagner has dropped back to 13th position. He's now trying to hold up Dean Mull using the inside line. Ron Hacker also in range for attacking.
And this is the frustrating part for Wagner is because of that little bit amount of damage. He's still got a fast enough car to keep up in the draft, but he's really not going to be able to do very much in terms of moves. So his race for the rest of this night is probably going to be primarily playing defense and trying to limit the damage and trying to limit the position losses and keep as many cars behind him as he can.
Pit stops are starting already, it's worth noting, because with 33 laps into the stint, Dakota DeMade and a second driver have indicated they want to come in. In fact, a third driver, Jim Herrick and Mike Gibson, also coming in a little bit earlier than the window by a few laps.
Yeah, so what these drivers are doing is they've taken the race with 100 laps to go, and they've said, okay, we know we have to have 2 more stops. We're going to split it equally into thirds. Whereas I think you'll see most of the drivers in that top 10 area, they're going to try and have it more with the 2 long stints and a short stint. As we see Andrew Wood battling alongside Trevor Malone, he finally has gotten to the back of Malone, but will he be able to get by him? Because Malone has been religious on that high line, and he's just not going to allow Wood to clear him here.
Clearing by, in fact, already though. Wood shorter end around the short shoot of this front straightaway. Looks like Wood is clear of Malone, wrapping the bottom to do so. Malone not electing to go underneath them to try and go for the swap back. Next driver back, Matt Taylor, who's trying to do the same.
Yeah, sometimes when you have a driver who's been able to reel you in like that, the best thing to do if you're Trevor Malone is just to allow that driver to keep pulling you forward. So I think that's what you're seeing from Malone. Meanwhile, Matt Wagner, he's been on pit lane here. He's one of the drivers who came down 8.1 in the box, so very unlikely that he got any damage repaired there. I think it's just his 4 tires fuel.
Have to tough it out in that circumstance as we take a look at how things are faring out with some of those on your race leaders. This is currently Tyler Graff, who has lost touch to Nunez and is getting reeled in quickly by some of those behind. Speaking of those behind them battling, Vern Hawkins the third, Brian Beard currently for the 10th position. Heating things up with Isaiah Dupree. Dupree amongst those who did not set a qualifying time tonight, looking to charge his way forward in the 98.
It's been really strong for that 98 of Isaiah Dupree. As you say, he's been steadily moving his way forward, and more importantly, quietly moving his way forward. But this is your first top 10 runner here. Tony Schowen is in this time by.
Gabe Wood also joining them in. Gabe Wood nearly missing the pit entry. And this is a deceptively difficult entry. Andrew Wood might be the prime example of how you enter this lane. He's expected to come in this time. Your leaders continue on. Wood is coming in right now and nearly bobbled up the track and nearly spins it in.
Yeah, as you can see, it's a very difficult pit in. As you were saying, you basically have to make sure that you're not going to transition as you're braking, but that means that you're basically braking in a straight line, turning, and then braking some more, and it's just so difficult to get it right, particularly when you're surrounded by other drivers. It looks like we have our leader in Jacob Oster coming to pit lane this time by.
Oster locking it up, getting below the speed limit, so the 9 machine is into the lane. Nick DeGroot continues. And that's expected because you don't want to enter the pit lane as teammates in the same pack because it's so easy to make contact. Wood is already off and away for reference for his service.
Yeah, I would expect Nick DeGroot in momentarily, though. I don't think that they want to be too far out of sync. They will want to get hooked back up again, and in fact, DeGroot is in this time by. Luis Gonzalez Nunez came in very hot there, but he made up a bunch of time there on Nick DeGroot.
Ulster is off and away. The interesting thing is going to be where some of these drivers cycle. Forsyth in particular is the closest to Oster. Oster coming out with a big buffer, though, over the 72. Wood lost ground with the overcut strategy compared to some of the undercutters, though.
Yeah, I think Wood, we saw he had those issues coming on the pit lane, and I think that cost him probably a second to a second and a half. And definitely not ideal there, but you can see just how much Oster was able to maximize that pit entry. He's well in front of his teammate there.
The group more than a second behind after the pit stop, with a lap car in between, and Dupree, who gets a bit loose. Graf is coming into the lane.
Dupree missed his pit.
That was, once again, Dupree who missed the pit lane for a moment. We stay green, though, as we take a look at some of the others as they battle it out on the racetrack. Dean Mall, Luis Gonzalez Nunez side by side.
And Dupree's going very slowly around the track because I bet you he's almost out of fuel, so he's going to have to make his tank last this whole lap here.
Oh, trouble! Pit entry! Dean Mall! Caution flag is out. Jeff Hyson amongst those involved in this one.
And it looks like Haisong got run over there by another driver. You can see the rear wing gone from that car, and it happening in the middle of this pit cycle is going to throw everything into chaos here. Joe Branch currently scored the leader of the race.
8 drivers were yet to pit in. Huge contact there. Another driver cutting through the grass at the same time. That happens above the yellow line, right in the midst. That's Craig Forsyth who had the contact. He actually hit the wall too in that. Look at this.
And that was Joe Branch that he's right around there too. So you can see he tries to shoot the gap there. Looks like Branch gets into the back of Forsyth, and then Forsyth somehow net codes through Joe Branch there. I don't know how Branch and Forsyth have survived that whole thing. I do think that Branch will need a front wing repair here, but the good news for him is that only maybe 14 or 15 cars are going to be on the lead lap here.
With the last of those last time by around was scoring 16th, in fact. The Branch is getting a wing change. Matt Taylor, though, may have just got one of the luckiest breaks of the race. He had just completed his pit stop at the time of this. Dupree, this is what happened when he missed his pit stall the first time. He was planning to come around into the lane the second time around. Instead, he holds on to the lead lap after having to baby this car around after the incident at the other end of the speedway.
Yeah, and Dupree might be the most fortunate driver, as you say, Justin, because somehow he's going to be on the lead lap despite missing pit lane entirely there. And it's all down to this. It was Haisong. He was trying to enter into the pits. Moll was underneath him, also trying to enter the pits, and Forsyth just doesn't realize both drivers are trying to come in, tries to shoot the gap, and doesn't make it.
See how many drivers have to take wave arounds. There is a plenty expected. Some of those who might be in that range, Jody Shawan, Trevor Malone, we'll see officially as they come across the stripe who will get their lead laps back. With 55 laps to go, it's a one-stopper to the end here. And Taylor, the race leader. Taylor, remember, was as far back as around 6th or 7th prior to the start of that pit window, and now get the chance to control the pack here when we get back racing.
And he'll have a couple of lap down cars between himself and Jacob Oster and Nick DeGroot, so that'll be a big benefit for Taylor. Sorry, I should correct myself. One lap down car at this point. But yeah, a number of drivers here are going to need to take the wave around, starting with Wood and Shawan, but also Malone, Wagner, a number of big names, Coogan, all having to take a wave around here.
Only driver not eligible for the wave around, Mike Gibson, who is that one car pinned between your race leader and second spot. Everybody else wave around to get back on the lead lap. Some of them were up to 12 laps into their stints prior to that incident. Jeff Hyson has just come to the pit lane, get some of the damage repairs done on the number 18 machine. And now it's the matter of how do you play this out if you're Oster and DeGroot, because you have two drivers who have dominated up at the front as a team unit. 60 laps for Oster for reference laps led. Now you have someone who gets the luck of the track position with the time of the caution flag in part.
I think there's only one way to go for the factory back drivers, and that's straight back to the front. I think that they've worked so well together, and you saw that on that first restart or the first start of the race, rather, where they were quickly able to work themselves into that 1-2 position. I think I would expect them to do the exact same thing here with Matt Taylor.
Delayed green, we have had a car stop on the racetrack. That's because Jeff Hyson had just come out of the pit lane and has just had to tow back the race car. That would have been right in front of your wave-around driver, so the whole field will get the chance to at least gather themselves back up here. This is the cause for the restart delay. Looks like he just realized the damage may have been too much.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you try to pull out on pit lane, and then as soon as you hit the gas, you know whether or not your car's stable enough to continue. And Haisung, seeing that the 1 to go signal was being given, he took the right road and got out of there. But it has delayed the start, but for all those drivers at the back of the field, it allows them just a little bit more time to pack all the way back up.
Mike Gibson is also pit, so the buffer that we talked about is gone. How do you play this if you're Taylor now for this restart, as another driver has just elected to come in and top off before we get back underway, and Mike Gibson again?
Yeah, I don't know that there's much that you can do if you're Matt Taylor, apart from sticking to that inside line as well as you can and hoping that they can't get a good run around you. But basically, you need to time this restart, and you need to hope that the factory back drivers can't get a good run on you.
Tower Graph is also an intriguing part of all this too. We know how aggressive that 88 was during one of the initial restarts and starts of this race. What do you think we might see from the 88, who's looking for back-to-back podiums?
Yeah, I think Graf, what he needs to do is he's got to figure out what his relationship with Luis Gonzalez Nunez is, whether they're going to finally start working together and staying with the leading pack, or whether they're going to continue to fight and cost themselves time. If I'm Tyler Graf, as much as it pains me, I might stick behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez here for a little while and just try and stay with that leading pack. Meanwhile, you have Mike Rigney and Will Gibson, who have spent most of this race in the teams right behind you. Suddenly, they're P5 and P6 on this restart.
Well, to see how this plays out, iRacing pace car dropping off this time by. Matt Taylor in control of the field. Green flag is up, back underway. Forsyth moves to the bottom of the racetrack. The rest of the pack rumbles its way into turn 1. Clean start for Matt Taylor and company. Jacob Ulster already wants his lead back to the inside. Rips it away into 3.
No pushback there from Matt Taylor. I think that he's going to be content here to just stick in behind the 2 factory back drivers, save some fuel, and just see what happens with a little bit fresher tires come the end of this race, because he knows that he's got fresher tires compared to the factory back drivers. Meanwhile, Craig Forsyth coming down pit lane, I believe, to serve a little bit of a penalty, but it's a hornet's nest back in the sort of 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th position. Dean Mull, one of the drivers in here, and oh wow, that was close coming out of turn 4 there.
3 wide, Musselman and Dupree alongside Wood for a moment. AJ Musselman had been marked back in the 20s prior to this caution flag. A big break for Musselman.
Absolutely, the 3rd factory back driver. He was one of those end-of-line club drivers that we were talking about earlier. He's used this strategy to perfection. Meanwhile, Matt Taylor has gone back to the leader of the race inside the 2 factory back drivers, and here comes Tyler Graf on the inside too.
All these leaders covered under a blanket. DeGroot checks up. Nunez forced to lift off the gas. To the inside goes Ulster. Taylor to the outside, back to turn 3. Ulster to the point. Graf hits the bump in turn 3, forced to lift in the battle for 3rd.
But Graf has gotten around Luis Gonzalez Nunez here, and I know that Graf will be very keen to not let Luis Gonzalez Nunez have another shot at this. Meanwhile, that's allowing Mike Rigney to get himself back into this battle, and they've got quite the gap here between Rigney and Will Gibson behind.
Hard cut left for Taylor to try and battle it out with Ulster. Back to the inside. Taylor not getting clear though this time. Oster keeps it alongside. looking with Graf. Now still side by side for third. Getting a huge whiff of draft down the straightaway. DeGroot trying to get clean air on the front wing.
Wow, this is all so tight here, and you can tell that the factory back drivers really want to work together here. But right now, it's Matt Taylor and Tyler Graf who are getting the best of them at this point. Graf has been really using that low line to his advantage. It wasn't working earlier on in the race. It is definitely working now at this point, Justin.
Take a look to the outside. Once again goes DeGroot. Outside for Oster. Trying to make that work. Here comes DeGroot. 3 wide for the race lead. Here comes the factory back machine of DeGroot. Back to the point, ripping it away from Taylor.
Oster's going to try and keep the car wound up on the outside, but Matt Taylor goes up the track, and oh, that was so close, and this is going to allow Tyler Graf a huge run. He's going to come up in a second, maybe even challenge for first.
He wants that lead and wants it now. Outside of DeGroot, caution flag is out. One car upside down in the middle of the pack. AJ Musselman, the third factory back machine. Significant damage, and we're under caution. It was in the battle with Trevor Malone and Vern Hawkins the third.
What a shame for AJ Musselman. He had just gotten back in there, into that battle, and it looks like just one of those deals where Malone wasn't expecting AJ to check up, I think, into that turn one. I think AJ might have been saving just a little bit of fuel, and Malone just gets into the back of him and turns him, and then Hawkins the third, nowhere to go. Really unfortunate for Vern.
Significant damage for Hawkins the third. Hugo Galvez also wants those who, in that caution flag, now have mandatory repairs in that vicinity. Let's take a look on board. This is Hugo.
Hugo is just trying to mind his own business, get through, and then he sees the car coming down in front of him, and he's just nowhere to go. Nothing he can do to get around him there.
Hugo Galvez, mandatory repairs with Musselman and Hawkins the third, and now it gets interesting. It is the very, very bare edge of the fuel window. It might become a fuel mileage race here, in fact.
Yeah, and you see pretty much everyone is going to come down pit lane this time, Justin, because what do we say? Cautions breed cautions, so it wouldn't surprise me to have a few more cautions allow these drivers to extend this fuel window out. The real question for me is, do you want to lead this race at this point, or do you want to be sitting in the draft saving fuel?
Matt Wagner overran their pit stall. Rest of the field coming off and away. First off was DeGroot, followed by Graf, Taylor, Oster, Nunez. Rigney and Will Gibson are the only two drivers who have elected to stay out here, and remember, those drivers, if they elect to not pit here, cannot make it to the end on gas.
Yeah, a little bit surprising here from Rigney and Gibson. Basically, what they're hoping for is that it goes green from here to the end, and everyone has to pit one more time, and no one can save the fuel to make it those 40 laps. And I gotta say, it's a bit of a gamble here from Rigney and Gibson. One I don't think I would have made if I were either of them given their track position.
There are them going in this time by, and their top off coming in for Craig Forsyth. There is a lap car of Mike Gibson who is between them as well, which could make things intriguing. Rigney getting the lead lap credit twice over during this caution flag window. But that battle for the race lead was getting intense and intense quickly prior to that caution flag.
Yeah, you can tell the urgency is really starting to come to the fore for some of these drivers. Matt Taylor, I speculated that he might be content to let the factory back drivers lead. He most certainly was not there. He was fighting for all it was worth to keep a stranglehold on the front of that field, and Tyler Graf was making some really smart moves there. I think that 88 car looks very dangerous here in a good way for Tyler Graf.
Almost got to the race lead prior to the caution. But as they get ready for the one-to-go signal this time around, we'll see if Rigney and Will Gibson come in. Give the point back to the 89 machine. We'll have to wait and see what they elect to do here. The word is from some of the teams that they think they can make it from here with this caution flag. There is Rigney. There is Will Gibson. To the point goes DeGroot for the restart.
Yeah, so I guess Rigney and Gibson's play here is just to be that half a gallon better on fuel than everyone else. But the problem with that is that they're going to go all the way to the end of the long line here, 26th, 27th position. So it's going to be real tough for them to make their way back through on pace. They have to hope that none of the other drivers can make it. And as Team Raceverse has already said in the chat, they think that they can go and they can make it on fuel from here. So it's a tough play for me what Rigney and Gibson are doing here.
Mike Gibson getting the wave around for this caution. 27 drivers still on the lead lap. Coming to 41 laps to go this time around. Make that 40 to go to determine how things play out right at the tippy top. The estimated window. It's DeGroot, Graf, Taylor, Oster, Nunez, Branch, Dupree, Wood, Schowen, and Malone. Top 10 here in the HyperX Chicagoland 200. So far, Factory Backed has led much of the way. A grand total of 72 of 94 laps led by their team. With 40 to go, DeGroot keeps that up for the restart. Green flag is up, back underway.
Oh, and what a start it was from Oster. He caught Matt Taylor sleeping there and was able to execute the outside pass, which is legal in iRacing. You are allowed to pass on that outside lane. Taylor wasn't covering the outside there, and it's allowed a really nice stop from Oster. But we are really spread out here in the back with Schowen, Branch, and a number of other drivers going 3 wide after the 4-car breakaway up front.
Drive-through penalty for Trevor Malone. Avoidable contact just given over the radio. Malone running in the 10th position prior to that penalty being awarded. The top 4 broken away. 5th on back. 2x2, several rows deep. Malone trying to find a way to serve the penalty at the bottom of the racetrack.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair penalty there from Race Control. At the end of the day, Malone was the driver squarely behind AJ Musselman, so he has to be the one to avoid the incident. So I think a good call there from Race Control.
Dupree trying to run away now in that 5th position, the highest that Dupree's been, up 26 positions. Tony Schowen back to the inside, however. These drivers already have just about lost themselves the draft with this battling, though. Already 7/10 back.
Yeah, they're going to have to be so careful here to not lose this draft. You have to make sure that you can get back, if you're in this pack, get back to those leading 4. And they have the advantage of having that clean air and the ability to draft out front, because guess what? DeGroot and Oster are 1-2 once again.
The outside going around the traffic now. Malone, after his drive-through penalty, trying to stay at the bottom of the racetrack. Dupree alongside Malone. Not able to clear, though. Nunez alongside, outside Matt Wagner, despite that damage, trying to make things work as well. Here's a look now with the head of that group, Tony Schowen. Inside line, that is Malone, a lap car.
And Malone coming out where he did probably help Tony Schowen a little bit there, but Schowen can't afford to have Malone battling too much. Oh, we got delayed through the grass in the tri-oval, Justin.
No caution, though. We stay green. DeMade able to get himself rolling through the grass. Still 2x2, several rows deep in the battle, going for 5th on back. The leaders playing a little bit more nicely in comparison. Wood trying to utilize that outside group. Here's a look at what you just saw.
And it's tale as old as time here at Chicagoland. Just two cars coming into one on the exit of turn 4 there, and the car on the inside. It's just a little bit of contact, and it throws them right into the grass there. But fortunately for DeMade, it looks like everyone got away with that with no real damage.
Made back to 26th position, 7 seconds behind your race leader, though, as a result of that, has lost the draft of the main pack. Tyler Graf looking a little bit antsy, though. Factory back staying 1-2 with DeGroot leading the pack, but it's Graf trying to get a little bit dicey. Taylor trying to utilize the outside to close up to the battle now for second.
Well, but look at what's happening behind as well, Justin. That gap that we had between 4th and 5th, it is gone. Tony Schowen looking to the inside of Matt Taylor here. So that's probably the urgency for Tyler Graf. He sees that pack coming.
Oster drop back to 3rd. Here comes Schowen for 3rd. Graf to the race lead. Graf drives to the point. Here comes de Groot as they start blocking to the middle of the back straightaway.
Also tense here. All of these drivers know that this is it. You have to go as fast as you possibly can at this point. You have to make your positions up while you still have the tires under you. So you're seeing a lot of desperate moves here, a lot of aggressive driving, and it could end very easily in calamity here.
We are already approaching that cliffing point, though. Remember with the tires, so that's something to keep in mind. Here are these drivers. Joe Branch looking at into the inside of Nunez. That's in the battle for 8th position as Schowen gets shuffled back and loses ground as he got loose out of 4.
And this track momentum is so important. So any loss of momentum, it can really hurt you. You can see Schowen down 3 positions in 1 lap alone. Now losing that to Andrew Wood as well. So meanwhile, at the front, Tyler Graf is now firmly in control, and he's got a factory back driver high, a factory back driver low, and he's going right down the middle.
The outside goes Taylor, trying to get around Oster. Nearing contact with Jacob. Now to the outside, Trevor Malone. Dupree joins the party. The inside, forced to lift though. More blocking to the middle of the back straightaway. de Groot not able to build the run to get alongside the 88.
And you can see just how much these drivers are searching for clean air from this view here. No 2 drivers are really following in the footsteps of the driver right in front. It's all spread out in the corners. But as soon as you get back on the straightaways, it's all 2 by 2. It's Nick de Groot, though, who's really been putting the pressure on Tyler Graf. He's got to find a way to get a nose on him, and at this point, he hasn't been able to do it.
Back to the inside. This time goes Oster. Trying to hold off Taylor. To make things work near contact for the battle behind them 3 wide for a moment. Nunez getting a bit squirrely with Scott Rankin, Joe Branch. Shane Coogan is also in the midst. He takes it 3 wide up the middle.
Yeah, Nunez had a big moment in turn 3 there. He hit the apron and it caused him to check up. And that checked up Branch and Schowen and allowed Rankin and Shane Coogan to get around both of them. But it was near disaster there from Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Nice car control to recover and not lose too much position there.
Up in front of them, Taylor ripping the high line, taking it 3 wide for the lead. Let's take a look at the replay. This is the moment with Nunez that causes the bottleneck. But up in the live action, it's Taylor ripping the top to get around de Groot. Malone up to 3rd, Graf left to dry in the middle.
And keep in mind that Malone is 1 lap down here, so what he's trying to do is he's trying to race his way back onto the lead lap here, which is making everything much more complicated for your top 5.
Graf forced down to the bottom, currently scored in 3rd, Oster in 4th, Dupree in 5th. Malone now drives around to 2nd in line. He is 1 car away from getting his lap back, but Taylor's not letting him get it.
Oh, and look at how close de Groot was to the back of Malone through turn 3 there. And that caused de Groot to check up. Now it's going to allow Trevor Malone. Oh, we got a big wreck!
In the heart of the pack, caution flag is out. 1 car upside down.
It's Matt Wagner.
Matt Wagner, one of your championship favorites.
And Shane Coogan was the other driver. He was the driver who spun in the middle of the dogleg there. Wow. That was a big one. And I'm surprised that it didn't collect more drivers. You can see it was just a case of one driver going one way, the other driver going another. And it looked like, I believe that might have been, was that Schowen or was that Nunez on the back of Shane Coogan there?
Short amongst those who is involved in this incident, we can say, but that might be the championship dagger for Wagner possibly.
Yeah, definitely a blow to Matt Wagner's championship hopes. Of course, we do have the drop weeks that Matt Wagner will avail himself of surely for this one. But here we ride on board with Matthew Short right behind Matt Wagner, and you can just see when this happens, there's just nowhere for either of them to go.
Huge contact. for Matt Wagner, Matthew Short, once those with mandatory repairs for obvious reasons. Also ducking in Scott Rankin, Andrew Wood from those who are in the vicinity. So we're under caution once more. 22 to go. Brian Beard, Gabe Wood, Shane Coogan, Gavin Sanders, Samuel Ryman, Mike Rickney, Mike Gibson, James Watson, Dakota DeMay, Dean Mull, all coming in this time.
A little bit surprised that we saw Wood and a couple of the top 10 drivers come down. They must have really been close on fuel and decided to top up here, because if it were me, I would be staying out no matter what at this point. I think the track position is much more important than having the extra fuel, so doing any fuel saving you can at this point to make it would be my course of action.
Trevor Malone was one car away from unlapping himself as well. So that builds a buffer now between first and second, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Race Control deals with Trevor Malone here, because really once we start to get into this 20 to go range, that's sort of the point where you have to have this gentleman's agreement to, if you're a lap car and you haven't got your lap back by that point, it's probably not going to happen. So I think probably Malone's got maybe 4 or 5 laps on this restart before he seriously has to consider getting out of the way of this battle.
Given 21 laps to go this time around, Matt Taylor has done a good job at holding on to things, though, we'll say, Andrew. Can he get the job done and hold off to Groot, Graf, and Oster? He's been able to lead 13 laps since having that caution flag period.
I think there's no question that Matt Taylor is one of the drivers in this series who, once you let him get into the lead, he's very hard to displace here, and particularly having Trevor Malone right behind him, it's going to be very, very difficult. But he's got some very hungry drivers behind him as well. De Groot, Graf, and Oster, they've shown themselves to be at the very least his match so far today.
So expecting lights to go out next time by. Who else has impressed you here tonight? Just notice, for example, one of your biggest movers outside of Pre, Creighton Carter is up to 9th, 15 positions up, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Creighton Carter is definitely one of the standouts, but I think the standout driver so far today, Justin, has been Isaiah Dupree, up from 31st to 6th. He was one of those end-of-the-line club penalties that we talked about, and he not only has he gone through the field, but he's done it the hard way. He's been making the moves himself. It hasn't been due to cautions. It's been due to him making the right moves. And most importantly, we haven't always seen this with Dupree, but he has kept himself nice and clean throughout this entire race. He hasn't been putting himself in danger or others in danger around him. So really impressive drive for Dupree in the number 98 car.
Gonna go until the restart. So it's Taylor, DeGroot, Graf, Oster, Nunez, Dupree, your top 6, followed by Brandt, Shawan, Carter, and Herrick now in the top 10. Remember those who are 12th on back, back to the pit, including Andrew Wood, Brian Beard, Gabe Wood, amongst those who are on fresh rubber for this restart. Taylor looking for a season-high 5th victory of the season. DeGroot looking to pick up the first win for his season. Tyler Graf, Jacob Ulster also in that club. So plenty of drivers hungry for win number 1, 2022. iRacing pace car ready to drop off. Green flag waits up at the stand. Back underway for the HyperX Chicagoland 200. Gabe Wood already trying to get to the outside of a couple drivers. Tyler Graf trying to get to the inside of a couple more, having to block off Ulster. Now the battle is on, right behind Trevor Malone, the lap car.
Yeah, that's Nick DeGroot going to the outside, and he's got his teammate right with him, and Malone is not making it easy on these other drivers around him. And I don't think he's making very many friends out there at this point, Justin.
Still trying to get his lap back to the inside, though, goes Graf. to become that first lead lap car to get around the 69. Instead, Malone to the outside of Taylor. 2 by 2, heading for the race lead into 3.
Taylor's going to have to be very difficult, or in a very difficult position here. He's got to find a way to negotiate with Trevor Malone, and he likes having Malone there, no question about it, but it's a very aggressive driver that he's got right behind him. Meanwhile, look at the big gap that we have, and Andrew Wood and all of the cars that pitted in are on the wrong side of the gap here. Creighton Carter in 9th. It's almost a second and a half back to Mike Rigney in 10th.
Will Gibson is the first of those who didn't hit in that gaggle. For reference, you see 3 wide forming up with Gabe Wood on the outside. Up in front of them. Caution flag in the second pack that we just seen. And it involves Gavin Sanders. It involves Brian Beard. We're under caution once more, and it's a majority of those who just pit.
Yeah, you saw that big breakaway that happened, and when that happens, everybody starts to get desperate. Everybody compacts together, and that's what happened. 3 wide, 2 deep here. You see Gabe Wood on the outside, Brian Beard on the low side, and it looks like there was just a little bit of contact there, and that's all it took to wipe out half of that pack.
Take a look at Shane Coogan. He was also involved in this one. About 15 car lengths back of the incident.
And you can just see that, like, where do you go there? There's just so much smoke. There's so many cars coming from the high side to the low side to the high side. Coogan tried to get around, but unfortunately made some more contact. Of course, Coogan had a little bit of a damaged car already from the previous incident, but definitely a bad day goes to worse for Shane Coogan.
So Matt Taylor holds on to the race lead, and when you say Trevor Malone wasn't making it easy on the lead lap cars, he was absolutely not making it easy whatsoever there.
And the problem for the other lead lap cars is I think that we're going back to green with 11 to go. And of course, you know, Justin, that at 10 to go, the lap cars go to the back of the field. We're going to be 1 lap short of that if my math is correct.
So what do you do if you're the lead lap cars here? Because if Malone keeps on running this outside groove here, it's about to get very hectic here to become that driver to get a chance to have a crack at any chance at Taylor.
And I mean, there's not a lot that you can do because you need to be able to finish this race. You can't do too much in terms of being aggressive with Malone. You have to be worried about Taylor. You have to figure out a way to negotiate through Malone, and you almost have to rely on Malone's goodwill and politeness to make this happen. But I think that this might be resolving itself. It looks like Malone might be taking matters into his own hands and coming down pit lane this time by Justin.
Might be the gentleman's agreement you're talking about. Giving up the ghost for the chance to battle for the lead lap, Trevor Malone. So now there goes the buffer part. That still doesn't end the potential craziness part, because we've seen how aggressive Graf has been trying to wrap around the bottom. Not a lot of grip, though, for your top 9 who have yet to pit. Everybody else has taken service.
If anything, this just ramps up what's about to happen, because Malone's out of there now. So all 3 of these drivers, Graf, DeGroot, and Oster, they are going to be firmly focused on the back of Matt Taylor, and all of them are going to be trying to find a way to displace him off that bottom lane and find a way to make this pass happen. It is going to get wild, Justin.
So who do you think is going to get it is the question.
To be honest, I almost am thinking that this is going to be a big wreck at the front. I'm looking at Dupree or Branch a little bit further back in line to be able to come through the carnage and steal a win here.
Dupree in 6th, Branch in 7th for reference. Branch has already had to make a wing change in this race. Scott Rankin also amongst those who's had a wing change for reference, back in 13th, who's still running. Pit stops this time included Jim Herrick with a wing change, 2 wing changes for Will Gibson under this caution. Coming to the 1 to green, it's Taylor, Graf, DeGroot, Oster, Nunez, Dupree, Brandt, Schauman, Carter, and Rigney, your top 10. Is there enough time for someone like Rigney to take advantage of 20-lap older tires? Will that even be a difference, though, to make it past 9 cars in 11 laps?
I think that Rigney or Wood are the two drivers that I'm looking at that could make the newer tires work, but they've got to make sure that everyone in front of them, the catches they need to have and be in contact with the leaders with 5 to go. If they're in that leading pack, they've got a shot at it.
See how this fares out. With 11 laps to decide it for the HyperX Chicagoland 200. Taylor now has led 22 laps, second most in this race. Nick DeGroot shuffle back to third most. Ulster the most. Tyler Graf fourth most. Once those who are your front runners, everyone else has led 1 or 2 laps respectively. Can Matt Taylor be a hero once more today? 11 laps to decide it from Chicagoland. iRacing pace car drops off. Green flag waits up at the stand. 11 to go from the Windy City.
Little bit of a checkup, a good launch there from Matt Taylor, but we're 3 wide already in this back. We've got a 3 wide situation, and now Joe Branch and Tony Schauman on the inside. Branch is really looking, but here comes Tyler Graf for the lead.
Graf slides up in front of Taylor. Drive-through penalty going on as well for the 0-5 of Will Gibson. 3 wide for the lead, offset. To the outside goes to DeGroot. Now 3 wide for second. Oster to the bottom.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez sitting in the popcorn position there, just waiting and watching and seeing what's happened. But Tyler Graf has somehow shuffled himself to the front of this race, and he is firmly planted himself on this bottom line. Oh, no!
Gabe Wood is up in the wall. Wood now gets hit by Watson as he comes down the racetrack. Caution flag is out with under 10 laps to go.
That was a little bit clumsy there from Wood and Watson. Unfortunately, it looked like Wood was able to keep his car going after getting forearm shivered into the outside wall. And then Watson just couldn't anticipate where the wobbling car was going and unfortunately tagged the back. But it looked like it was Schauman, Rigney, and Wood coming down the backstretch here. Schauman's on the inside, and then suddenly it becomes 3 wide, and there's just not enough room for Wood there.
There's Watson. Not sure what you can say.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations where if you're Watson, I think you needed to be on the brakes a little bit more. But at the same time, you're not anticipating a car sort of weeble wobbling down the banking in front of you. So there's really nothing you can do there at that point if you're Watson.
So to the back of the field will go Mike Gibson with this caution flag, electing to come and pit. So this likely setting up what would be the final restart of the race potentially here, Andrew. Now it's Graf in control of this pack for the first time tonight. Can Graf hold on is a major question.
And I don't know that he can, Justin, because we've seen a number of times that the leader is a little bit of a sitting duck on that first lap. How many times have we seen someone else cycle to the front here, and Matt Taylor's right behind him? We know that he knows how to make a move. Nick DeGroot knows how to make a move. Jacob Oster knows how to make a move. So I think it's going to be really touch and go for Tyler Graf. He's got to make some bold decisions here on when he's going to go for the restart and what line he defends, particularly on the first lap of this restart.
So a few more laps of pacing to go before that mark too. Dupree got absolutely swallowed up on that restart, we'll say. Just did not seem to get going in the 98.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of a checkup that caused that, I think, Justin, and that was part of the reason that we saw the 3-wide situation that led to the caution was Dupree just didn't get the start that he needed, and it cost him a couple of positions, but it also produced the 3-wide.
So we've seen already the move to the inside for Graf going off that restart into turn 3. Will that move be there again to be able to do that same attempt with is it looking like a 5-lap shootout?
And that's the question, isn't it, Justin? Is what, if you're Tyler Graf, what line do you defend? Because we talked about how narrow it is, but it's pretty wide if you have a wide open track in front of you. So if you're Matt Taylor, do you allow Tyler Graf to defend the inside and maybe sweep to the outside and sweep around him? And if you're Tyler Graf, do you defend the inside or do you try and keep your momentum up on the outside? It's a really difficult position to be in if you're Tyler Graf.
Graf looking to drive that 88 machine to victory after so much success last time out at New Hampshire with the track position. He's been able to keep his track position all night here tonight. But he'll have to hold off the championship points leader in Matt Taylor, as well as some of the other top drivers of the night to do so. Give credit to Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's been a top 5 contender all night as well, coming to the Wendigo signal, still in 5th.
Yeah, Luis has had a nice solid race here, and he's just got 6 more laps to go to cap off what would be a really solid top 5, top 10 run for him.
You can also say the same about Joe Branch recovering from the wing change, too.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the type of run that Branch needed as well, particularly with Matt Wagner having a bad run here today. The fact that he's so close to the back of Matt Taylor, this will keep him in that championship fight.
So you predicted the popcorn seat drivers of Branch and Dupree potentially in the midst last time. Do you stick with that with 5 laps to decide it? Next flag likely ending the race.
Yeah, I think I'm going to change it up. I'm going to go with Jacob Oster in that 4th position. I think that he's going to make a bold move on the final lap, and coming back to the flag, he's going to take it.
5 laps to go from Chicagoland Speedway. This to decide potentially the HyperX Chicagoland 200. It's Graf, Taylor, DeGroot, Oster, and Nunez, your top 5, with Branch, Dupree, Shalvin, Carter, and Rigney inside the top 10. Green flag is out. Graf going to the bottom of the racetrack. Everyone else trying to follow.
And the interesting thing here is Tyler Graf has got a really big jump, but is this too big of a jump here for Tyler Graf? Will Matt Taylor just get a tremendous run on him and be able to draft around him that way?
Here comes Nunez side by side for a top 5 spot, up to 4th position for the moment. Oster keeps it on the outside though. Starting to close back up to Graf. It's down to 3/10, down to 4 laps to go.
And here comes the train. Here comes Matt Taylor. He's got a heap of speed, a heap of momentum. They're spread out 3 wide behind him. DeGroot sliding up the racetrack right in front of Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Really, really tight stuff. Meanwhile, Tyler Graf is enjoying the front of this field right now.
Graf seen everything he needs to see. 3 to go. Next flag ends it from here, past the point of no return. 2 by 2 with DeGroot on the outside. Now with Nunez in the battle for 3rd. Up to 2nd goes Oster. Oster already within 3 car lengths, down to 2/10 is the gap. Here comes Taylor as he falls with a block in the snake.
Here comes Oster, but here comes Taylor responding back. The outside lane was working so well early on in the race, but it seems like it might not be working as well now. The inside lane seems to have the advantage right now, though. Tyler Graf has been able to do everything and maintain about 2.5, 3/10 of a second, and these drivers are fighting amongst themselves and not making enough progress on Tyler Graf right now.
Line back up astern, trying to close back up to Graf, coming to the white flag this time by. Oster tries to use the 2nd line. Graf using the bottom. 2/10 the gap, coming to the final time around from Chicagoland.
Oster's really well positioned here. He's gotten clear of Matt Taylor. He's got his teammate behind him. He's got to find a way to get his momentum, get the draft going. He's got one more shot at this. It's going to come down to a photo finish. It's going to come down to the final lap.
Oster to the outside. Graf hugs the inside. Can Oster get the cross to the inside? He tries it. Not going to get there. Tyler Graf wins the HyperX Chicagoland 200.
Wow, what a win for Tyler Graf, Justin. He did exactly what he needed to do. He had a brilliant restart there and just held the bottom line, held that lead so well. What a race from Tyler Graff.
Tyler Graff, his first victory of the season. Let's take a look at what happened behind him. This is Dakota DeMay.
Yeah, just a little bit of argy-bargy there in the back of the field. I think that's Scott Rankin in front, and Rankin was trying to cover DeMay's run off. DeMay didn't want to lift on the final lap, and that put him through the grass on the inside there.
For the first time in his career, a Lionheart Racing Series winner is Tyler Graff, burning it down here at Chicagoland.
And you won't find a more enthusiastic winner than Tyler Graff. He's done so much for this series. He's one of the primary painters for the series. He's handled social media in the past. There's been a lot of contributions for Tyler Graff to the Lionheart community, so this is going to be a very, very popular win.
The celebration is on for Tyler Graff. He started off in the Speedway Series just last round, in fact, in New Hampshire. And now, after a top 5 last time, Car 88 picks up win number 1. Graff trying to go backwards for his burnout. Let's take a look at your SimRace247.com unofficial race results. Tyler Graff picks up the victory by 9/100ths of a second over Jacob Alster. Then it's Nick DeGroot, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez, Matt Taylor, the top 5. Joe Branch and Tony Shalvin, along with Mike Rigney, Isaiah Dupree, Creighton Carter, side your top 10. 11th spot tonight goes to Jim Herrick with Andrew Wood in the 12th spot. Scott Rankin, Samuel Ryman, Will Gibson, the top 15. Dean Mall, Mike Gibson, Dakota DeMay rounding out the lead lap drivers. Trevor Malone finishes 1 lap down, 19th. Craig Forsyth 2 laps down, and 20th. The rest of the drivers DNF. Those drivers include Gabe Wood, James Watson, Gavin Sanders, Brian Beard, Shane Coogan, Ron Hacker, Matthew Short, Pat Wagner, AJ Musselman, and Vern Hawkins III. Hugo Gowes, Jeff Hyson, and Gonzalo Munoz also did not take the checker flag. But that brings us into our post-race coverage presented by HyperX. This Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra-comfortable line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. Tyler Graff still making his way over to HyperX Victory Lane. Let's take a quick chance to talk to third place finisher Nick DeGroot. Nick, 18 laps tonight, top 3 starting position, top 3 finishing position. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. They don't get much cleaner than that one. Me and Jacob were in control for a really large portion of that race, and yeah, I don't think we ever, outside of pit stops, fell lower than the top 5, which is just really nice to have a race like that where everything goes your way, but at the end just need a little bit more, you know. Happy for a double podium for Factory Back, though. I believe that's our first one of the seasons. It's been a long time coming.
I was about to say, last season we talked about this much different compared to this season. How is it now, that drive, knowing you finally get the double podium after some of the bad luck for your team this season?
Yeah, it feels so good. We keep inching closer and closer to that win. All 3 of us, AJ included, we've been flirting with it, but just not quite there. And like you said, the bad luck. And this race, I think we had our best shot yet to get it this year. But during that, I believe, lap 80-ish caution, Taylor got in front of us there, and we had to. I think we got him on that restart, and then we had the caution that set up the fuel mileage race. And that's where everything got real screwy, because everyone's trying to keep track position while also saving fuel, and it was really chaos up there trying to deal with both. And I'm not sure what else we could have done. I just wish I was second on those restarts instead of third, because I had a plan for second. I'm not quite sure what I could have done from third, though.
Thank you very much for the time, Nick.
Yep, thank you.
That's Nick DeGroot coming away with third. Second spot goes to Jacob Alster. Jacob, your best run of the season. Second spot, though, tonight. How would you describe your run? 63 laps led.
I feel like that's probably my best run I've had in the series. From the get-go, I felt really comfortable with the car and the setup, and I was able to make passes whenever I wanted to. And that's how I got to the lead so fast. And Nick and I had planned out as we were going up and we got the first second that we could drive away from everybody. Really wish that caution didn't come out in the middle of green flag pit stops because I think we were going to waltz away with that one, but yeah, that's just how it goes.
Well, tonight was an eventful one indeed for you. It's been an eventful season. We've seen some good pace from you, but finally breaking through on the podium here. Talk about those trials and tribulations to get to this point.
It really has been kind of like an odd season where I've shown speed like almost every single week, I feel, with the exception of a couple. And I've just ran into other people's problems, it seems like. There's been a couple of times, Pocono and I think Milwaukee, where I got caught up in my own mistakes and forced myself into issues. But to have a race like this that's just clean, that's basically how Gateway should have went, I feel really nice, really happy about that outcome.
Congratulations on the podium tonight, Jacob.
Thank you.
Jacob Ulster coming away with second spot tonight. But HyperX victory lane will to be very hyper indeed, because the driver tonight who picked up the victory, Car 88, Tyler Graf, first Speedway Series victory in the second start of the season. How does it feel to be a Speedway Series winner?
I'm just happy to finally have a Lionheart win. It's been such a long time coming. I don't really know what to say. I'm just extremely excited. I came to run the series to get some more track time, build some confidence, and working with Matt, we've got something figured out, and I'm just hyped. This is awesome.
Talk us through that battle for the lead tonight, because it was not easy for you to get up there and hold on to the spot. Second most laps led, mind you, in 24.
Yeah, you really didn't want to lead. That one third restart to the end or second restart to the end, I took the lead because I didn't like that second pack was catching us, and then the second I got out in the lead, my fuel number went to red. I knew it was really close, but that fuel number went to red, so then I was saving in front of the pack. I was running around at about 80% throttle, and which obviously let the pack catch up more, but with the yellows, it really didn't end up mattering all that much. We got the restarts pretty good, and that last restart, we'd been going late all night, and I was like, I'm going right away, and I'm taking the shortest way around, and drove defensive the last, 4 laps, and it ended up working out.
Well, Tauber, congratulations on your first victory here tonight. Lots of work put in by Tauber Graf. I'd like to thank him, Jacob Ulster, Nick DeGroot for taking the time to speak with us. What a race here tonight at Chicagoland, though, Andrew. Plenty of movers and shakers, but the next time out, it's Twin Ring Motegi, a track that is very difficult to maneuver through the traffic.
Absolutely. It's a quick turnaround for these Lionheart Speedway drivers. 1 week's time is all that is going to happen here before round 13 at Motegi. And as you say, it's a tricky track. This is one of those tracks where, especially in the DW12, it's going to be really tight action. It's really wide, and it invites a lot of send and a lot of brave maneuvers, let's call them.
Of course, that race, August the 29th. Be sure to tune in 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Then, a few-week break before Iowa, Charlotte, Richmond, Kansas. Of course, the Triple Crown Double Point Paying finale at Auto Club. With that, it's time to say goodbye, but first things first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for taking part and supporting the Lionheart Speedway Series, first with Moser Racing. Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like the R9 Direct Wheelbase, Direct Drive Wheelbase, and GS Steering Wheel. Featuring zero-delay, wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the luxury ultra-comfortable cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always falls a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software, easy to install and let you feel every bump on the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. Tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit www.nextlevelracing.com. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a drama experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. But it's not just those names, but these as well that help things turn here in the Lionheart Racing Series. For more information, go to LionheartRacingSeries.com to learn about the re-sanctioning series the body runs. But on that note, it's time to say goodbye. For my broadcast partner tonight and Andrew Kinsella, for our producer Arjuna Kankipati, I'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage here from iRacing's virtual Chicagoland Speedway. It's time to say goodbye. Once again, you've been watching the Lionheart Speedway Series. Congratulations once again to your race winner, Tyra Graff, your winner at Chicagoland.